Good afternoon or good evening, depending on where you might be. My name is Kevin Michael Grace, and this is the KMG show for Tuesday, January the 19th, 2021. Tomorrow, of course, is Inauguration Day. And quite the celebration they have laid on for the nation's capital, Washington, D.C. And Barack and Kamala have dropped a playlist, dropped, as the kiddies like to say. I'll get to that in just a minute. But Donald Trump issued a farewell speech. He said, as I think back on the past 4 years, one image rises in my mind above all others. Whenever I have traveled along the motorcade route, there were thousands and thousands of people. They came out with their families so they could stand as we passed and proudly wave our great American flag. It never failed to deeply move me. I knew that they did not come just to show their support of me. They came out to show me their support and love for their country. This is a republic of proud citizens who are united by our common conviction that America is the greatest nation in all of history. We are and must always be a land of hope, of light, and of glory to all the world. This is the precious inheritance that we must safeguard at every single turn. For the past 4 years, I have worked to do just that, Trump continued. From my great hall of Muslim leaders in Riyadh to a great square of Polish people in Warsaw, from the floor of the Korean Assembly to the podium at the United Nations General Assembly, and from the Forbidden City in Beijing to the shadow of Mount Rushmore, I fought for you. I fought for your family. I fought for our country. Above all, I fought for America and all it stands for and all that is safe, strong, proud, and free. Now, as I prepare to hand over power to a new administration at noon Wednesday, I want you to know that the movement we started is only just beginning. There's never been anything like it. The belief that a nation must serve its citizens will not dwindle, but instead only grow stronger by the day, as long as the American people hold in their hearts deep and devoted love of country. Then there is nothing that this nation cannot achieve. Our communities will flourish, our people will be prosperous, our traditions will be cherished, our faith will be strong, and our future will be brighter than ever before. I go from this majestic place with a loyal and joyful heart, an optimistic spirit, and a supreme confidence that for our country and for our children, the best is yet to come. Thank you and farewell. God bless you. God bless the United States of America. Well, then that's that then. Vox Day still holding on. Comments, this is widely supposed to be a concessionary speech. Perhaps it is, but I don't think so. Perhaps the new administration to which you will hand power at noon Wednesday is the Biden administration, but I don't think so. In any case, remember the 48 hours rule. Let's see. Drudge, of course, is chortling over this. The last night, farewell address, grand finale, 100 pardons. Gallup declares lowest rated presidency. Angst in Palm Beach. Trump leaves as he came, isolated and unpredictable. Talked out of pardoning kids, Republican lawmakers. Commute sentence of Snoop Dogg pal. How first day of presidency foreshadowed the years to come. Outcast, trailed by pandemic, joblessness. Yes, of course, there's no pandemic in Canada or Britain or in France or in Germany, merely the United States of America. And it was all due to Trump. Once again, Trump had a magic wand in one of the drawers of his desk in the Oval Office, and all he had to do was pull open that drawer, pick up the magic wand, wave it, and COVID-19 would be vanquished. But this is just a measure of Trump's selfishness, that for month after month after month, he refused to do this. Refused to do it. Shocking. Really? Let's see. The latest, Biden calls for remembrance at COVID-19 memorial. There's a COVID-19 memorial now? Yes. Oh, unity. Yes, we begin healing together. Ho, ho. Yes, one is hearing an awful lot about unity these days. It's all unity, really. It's a time for healing, actually. Emerald Robinson comments, Biden, let's unify. Also, some GOP senators are like Nazis. AOC, we need funding to reprogram all of them. General McChrystal, they're all like Al-Qaeda. Sue Gordon, we need a commission. Jeremy Bash, the FBI is going to have to go after them. Hillary Clinton, Russia. Hillary Clinton stated that she believed that Trump was on the phone with Vladimir Putin on January the 6th. Either Hillary Clinton is deranged, or this is an indication that the Democrats and the media intend to keep pushing the entirely false, made-up, meretricious Russiagate narrative. Of course, it came from Hillary Clinton's campaign. Hillary Clinton's campaign paid for the infamous Steele or Piss dossier. And I guess Hillary doesn't believe that she has yet got her investment back. What else do we have in that regard? Mike Pompeo says that multiculturalism is not America. Pretty daring of him, I must say, especially in these times. Oh, Shep Smith blasts former colleagues. I don't know how they sleep at night. I shudder to think how Shepard Smith spends his nights. Lana Del Rey shows Americans who they really are. Does she wear Converse shoes too? Of course, Lana Del Rey is an entirely made-up person. Everything about her came from her rich daddy, who delivered her whole or reborn, as it were, to the record industry, whereupon they made her a star. Yes, but she's got competition now. Olivia Rodrigo, who's put out a chartbuster called A Driver's License, started on TikTok. Olivia Isabel Rodrigo, born February the 20th, 2003. So she is 17 years old. She is, multiracial. And she is yet another barely pubescent mouse factory replicant. I'll be speaking a little more about the music industry. Well, right now, actually, this is from Variety. Biden-Harris team releases 46-song inaugural playlist ranging from Steely Dan to SZA. Steely Dan, hey? Oh, dangerous. Dangerous there, and I don't think they understand just how dangerous. The inauguration team for President-elect Joe Biden and VP-to-be Kamala Harris has released an official inaugural playlist with 46 songs to represent the incoming 46th president, ranging from Steely Dan's Golden Oldies, Do It Again. What? That song? To SZA's very latest, Good Days, which was just released on Christmas Day. As you might expect, it's in the same eclectic, inclusive, aspirational spirit as former President Barack Obama's signature playlist, if not quite as outlandishly hap as some of Obama's post-presidency roundups have been, without Malia and Sasha around to pack it with their picks. I don't know, Hunter Biden, he seems pretty hap. Perhaps he could have helped. Now available on all the major streaming services, the playlist goes free range at times, with vintage and contemporary inclusions that haven't necessarily been staples of the pre-election campaign, from the average white band's classic instrumental Pick Up the Pieces to the modern Black Lives Matter-centric group Salt's Free. Current Grammy nominees Dua Lipa and Kay Tranata show up, as do such relatively of-the-moment artists as Burna Boy, The Internet, MF Doom, Major Lazer, and Tame Impala. Boomer tunes are well represented too, between Marvin Gaye, who was on every single one of these playlists, Stevie Wonder, ditto, Led Zeppelin, and Bob Marley. The key ingredients, though, of course, are the walk-up or walk-off music for Biden, Harris, and their spouses, familiar to those who follow the 2020 campaign closely. Biden's personal campaign music is reprised in the form of Bruce Springsteen's We Take Care of Our Own. Mary J. Blige's Work That, of course, has been a staple of her campaigning. there's a mistake here. They forgot to mention Kamala. That's not me. That's Variety. It should say, has been a staple of Kamala's campaigning since the night she was announced as Biden's VP choice. Dr. Jill Biden has Daryl Hall and John Oates' You Make My Dreams as her theme. Actually, that seems quite likable. The New Radicals, You Get What You Give, is the pick of second gentleman Doug M. Hoff. That was quite a big song in its day. Strange fellow who made that record. He seemed to be very, very angry. Most of the songs were clearly picked for their uplifting spirit, even if they weren't substantial hits, like Sound of Blackness's Optimistic. As for the Doobie Brothers, Sad, What a Fool Believes, it can only be assumed that someone on the committee felt it would be assumed that that one applies to the other side, since the Biden team's picks have generally not been as tone-deaf as Trump picking the gay anthem YMCA and the cynical You Can't Always Get What You Want. Is You Can't Always Get What You Want a cynical song? No, it is not. But sometimes, just sometimes, you get what you need. You see? Okay. I wasted about 15 minutes this afternoon looking for a list. I just wanted a list of the 46 songs chosen. And I went to about 10, 15 different websites, and I couldn't get a list. Is this how bloody lazy journalists are now? That they can't just go through Spotify or whatever and come up with a list of the 46 songs? Apparently so. I don't know what the point of this is, except to push Spotify. Maybe it's been put to Joe Biden that recording artists now simply are making too much money still, that we all have to use streaming services, so the streaming services can pay the 1/10 of a pittance that they normally do for every play. The committee says that it's partnering with D Nice and Radio, Issa Rae's label, to release the playlist. It's being put up on Spotify, Apple Music, Tidal, and Amazon Music with a different special mix prepared for SoundCloud. And in one of these other stories reveals that, of course, Biden and Kamala had nothing to do with this playlist. It was curated, as they say, by D Nice and Radio. I can't say that I'm familiar with them, but perhaps I will be. Perhaps this will launch a sensation. Again, let's see if I can find this word, curated. Oh, here we go. According to a tweet on Friday from the Biden inaugural committee, the list of songs was curated by DJ D Nice and Issa Rae's music company, Radio. So at least they've dropped the pretense that they have actually anything to do with this music. What would Joe Biden listen to? I think Steve Saylor suggested REO Speedwagon. Oh, yeah. Journey? I don't know. Kenny G? I kind of see Kamala as a Kenny G person. Issa Rae is supposed to be someone that we all know about. According to Wiki, born in 1985, Jo Issa Rae Diop is an American actress, writer, and producer who in 2018 was included in the annual Time 100 list of the most influential people in the world. Ha 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 ha. They really expect us to believe that? Most influential in the world? No. I first noticed this woman. She comes from, her family comes from Senegal. One of them from Senegal, one of them from Louisiana. She lived as a child in Senegal. Oh, let's see. Passover dinners with Jewish best friends. Of course. But this woman we've been told since Awkward Black Girl in 2011 that you must pay attention to this woman because she's just so influential. But, okay, so I wonder whether the curators of this were having a little troll there. Steely Dan's Do It Again was a hit, an AM hit from their first album in 1972, and it is one of the grimmest songs ever recorded. Steely Dan often used to contrast upbeat music, Latin-style music, in the case of Do It Again, with exceedingly dour lyrics. And here they are. In the morning, you go gunning for the man who stole your water, and you fire till he is done in, but they catch you at the border. And the mourners are all singing as they drag you by your feet, but the hangman isn't hanging, and they put you on the street. You go back, Jack, do it again. Wheels turning round and round. You go back, Jack, do it again. When you know she's no high climber, then you find your only friend in a room with your two-timer, and you're sure you're near the end. Then you love a little wild one, and she brings you only sorrow all the time. You know she's smiling. You'll be on your knees tomorrow. Chorus. And then now you swear and kick and beg us that you're not a gambling man. Then you find you're back in Vegas with a handle in your hand. Your black cards can make you money, so you hide them when you're able. In the land of milk and honey, you must put them on the table. Oh dear, could that be a possible reference to the Biden family's international business dealings? Probably not, but that's how I am going to regard that really strange choice. Let's see, the AV Club had a story. Oh, let's see. If nothing else, though, it's nice to see 46 different artists who will not get immediately righteous pissed off at having their images and art co-opted in service of the leader of the free world, a phenomenon that has been shockingly common during the tenure of the office's current incumbent. Just how pissy can you get? Yeah, okay. Assemble a Radio and D-Nice, the playlist ranged from Mac Miller and Dua Lipa to A Tribe Called Quest and Sia to what we can only assume was Biden's one absolute, don't fuck with me, I'm the president now, probably demand the inclusion of the Doobie Brothers, What a Fool Believes. Don't people like Michael McDonald? I like Michael McDonald. Lots of people like Michael McDonald. Why, he is the very soul of yacht rock. I highly recommend that internet series, Yacht Rock, by the way. But with regard to the AV Club's gushing over Biden's playlist, which he had nothing to do with, a commentator, William Hughes, says, I'm sick of these focus grouped political hacks' ideas of broadly inoffensive playlists. Yes, exactly. And of course, a real playlist representative of someone's music taste would include various outliers, and there are never any outliers on this list. Are we expected to believe that politicians pay any attention to music, that they're music lovers? When David Cameron insisted that he was a big fan of the Smiths, well, I suspect back there in the late 80s when he was in university, when he wanted to feel gloomy, he put on some Smith songs. So I believe that to be sincere. But no, these people are far too busy to listen to music, and listening to music doesn't make you richer or more powerful or more influential. So they have no time for it. Bam, ba, bam, bam, ba, bam, ba, bam, bam. I want to be curated, says Mike F. That's good. I like that. Of course, it is a reference to my favorite Ramones song, I Want to Be Sedated. I'm so excited, and I just can't hide it, says Palcasso 88. Jokin 666, checking all the boxes. It really wasn't a farewell speech. Read VD and his commentators, says Ann Run. Yes, I'm familiar with that. From Purple Mountain's Majesty above the fruited plain. Those words are they're not very good. They are really not very good. Mr. Chuck the Buck Norris says that Fox Day throw it in the towel. No, he has not. No, he has not. he may be the last bitter ender. Yeah, I tend to discount all this because for something, untoward to happen, this would be one of the most extraordinary things to happen, not just this century, but I don't know, for hundreds of years. That's not the sort of thing that one would normally put money on. Of course, it could happen. Roulette Cracked says Trump mentioned everyone who voted for him except white people. Very weird, not very inclusive of him. David Wright says now would be a good time for Jesus to make that return visit that we've been hearing about for centuries. I never really understood that part. Jesus is part of the Trinity, and the Holy Ghost, came to us at Pentecost and is still here. So Jesus is still with us. Jim Smith says the National Cathedral rang 400 bells this evening, one for each 1,000 coronavirus deaths. Is the National Cathedral in the habit of rolling bells for all the influenza deaths every year, for all the cancer deaths every year, for all the deaths from heart disease? What makes coronavirus so special? Head McNack makes a comment about what Shep Smith that I'm not going to repeat. I'll just recycle my old joke about Anderson Cooper looking like a gay robot and Shep Smith looking like a gay serial killer. What was it, like 15 years ago? I first saw Shep Smith on TV, and I thought, how did this guy get on TV? I mentioned that with regard to Don Lemon, who is densely stupid and ignorant. Don Lemon, on the other hand, has a friendly-looking face. Shep Smith is so creepy-looking that I couldn't understand it then, and I can't understand it now. Steely Dan is code word for what? Well, of course, it comes from a William Burroughs reference, which I'm not going to explain. You could look it up. It's pretty creepy. Cool times on the boxcar on the way to the Gulag, says Walrus Lolbertarian. Again from Roulette Cracked. Ooh, they are so cool and hip, cuddly and fuzzy, tolerant flesh bags. Yes, Dua Lipa. Am I pronouncing this wrong? Yeah, we want 12-year-olds, 14-year-olds, 16-year-olds to sing songs about life because they know life so very deeply, Jim Bowden says, if Trump doesn't pardon Assange, my fellow Australian, it proves that Trump loves and agrees with Democrats. Okay, and the new Jewish neocons are now in charge of the post-Trump Republican Party. I don't really know what Trump thinks of Julian Assange and what he did, actually. Only Gage and Extra still like that song, says Head McNack. I don't know to which song you are referring. Won't get fooled again. Media Hits says Bruce Springsteen originally did Blinded by the Light, still not as good as the 70s version, but everything he did was boring. Yeah, it's really curious that Manfred Mann, South African, a friend of mine who drummed in a band in a Eastern European communist country in the 1960s, met Manfred Mann. Of course, his name is not Manfred Mann. I think his name is Manfred Lubowitz. When he was touring Eastern Europe in 1967, and Manfred Mann was, I suppose, properly grateful. It's like, here I am, South African Jew, and now I'm a big British pop star. Well, Manfred Mann went Prague roughly around 1970, 71, and he had some hits. He had some hit albums and hit singles, including Blinded by the Light by Bruce Springsteen. David Bowie, of course, was pushing Bruce Springsteen in the early 70s. I never got it. I never liked him. Never liked that. Hello to our valiant moderator, Chad Chadson. Thank you for your service. Palpicasso 88, Americans will be singing What Have I Done to Deserve This soon enough. It's So Nice to Be With You by Gallery was also released in 1972, says Glib Medley. Oh, righty. And do we have anything else? Biden inauguration should list girlfriend in a coma, says Half Galician. Very good. Very good. Chogokin 666, I watched Kundun, thought it was pretty good. I thought it was very good indeed. And I thought it was a shame that Martin Scorsese was, he made a movie, a hagiographic movie about Buddhism, but of course was not going to do the same for his own religion of Catholicism. Glib Medley, your arsenal is uploaded. Yeah, Kundun was produced by the Walt Disney Company, and I guess it's finally come out in Blu-ray, but of course, for obvious reasons, Walt Disney was deeply ashamed and rather frightened that they had made a movie about the Dalai Lama. Okay. All right. Let's get back to it here, and let's move away from music. Inauguration parties. Yes, this playlist, I forgot to mention that is for your inauguration parties. Who is having inauguration parties? I'm rather thinking, is this going to be mandatory at certain work sites, certain Fortune 500, especially Silicon Valley work sites? I would not be surprised. This is from a few days ago. Joe Biden named Samantha Power to lead U.S. International Aid Agency. Yes, Samantha Power, the fearsome Irish banshee. Sarah Abdallah comments, Samantha Power helped Obama, Biden, and Hillary Clinton obliterate Libya, leaving the country riddled with open-air slave markets under the guise of revolution and humanitarianism. Now she's about to head USAID, a known front for CIA regime change ops. What could go wrong? Samantha Power, of course, has been boosted by the media for many years, and there's a bunch of similar women. They're not Irish banshees, but the point seems to be that women are better at murdering hapless foreigners than men. That's a pretty fascinating development in feminism, wouldn't you say? I'm perfectly willing for women to take the laurels of being better at murdering hapless foreigners than men. They want it, they can have it. What about this impeachment that I've been hearing about? Oh no, from CNN. At last, a nation mourns. No, there was no mourning for the people who had died of COVID-19 before Joe Biden got involved. This is just all so sickening. That would Joe Biden stoop to politicize COVID-19? Well, COVID-19 has been politicized right from the very beginning. You don't need to wear masks. By all means, go to those Chinatown celebrations, because the real virus is xenophobia. The real virus is, well, wait for it, racism. Of course it is. Of course it is. Federalist Society ponders purging all Trump supporters. This is from Ace of Spades. And he comments, this is why I've made it easier for them by purging myself. Good luck winning elections with 10 million total voters, assholes, he adds. Following the January 6th siege of the U.S. Capitol, oh, shut up. Oh, boo, groan, hiss. There was no siege. A bunch of people entered the Capitol, took some stuff, knocked some things over, broke some glass, and then they left. That is not a siege. The conservative movement is aggressively folding to the Democrats, making capitulations designed to protect the wealth of the donor class, even if it means facilitating the death of American liberties. This is a piece from Big League Politics that Ace is quoting from. The Federalist Society is one of the conservative organizations that is readying a pivot leftward, with weak conservative members of the society agitating against pro-Trump lawyers involved with the group. Recent events have me extremely troubled about the direction which the Federalist Society is heading. While I embrace spirited debate, of course you do, and do not believe in the left's cancel culture instincts, except when you take part in it, I do believe that there is a line that cannot be crossed, a line which is defined by the left and which gets ever closer to you. And you find yourself on the other end of that line, but you never learn, do you? Insurrection and incitement to undermine the rule of law in our Constitution. Attorney Jeremy Rosen wrote in an email to the Federalist Society leaders after the Capitol siege. Rosen, a former Trump judicial nominee who has served as president of the Los Angeles Lawyers chapter of the Federalist Society, is trying to engineer a purge of pro-Trump individuals. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Let's, they can have their conservative movement, their true blue conservatives, and they will discover that they're socially liberal, fiscally conservative, except they're not fiscally conservative, policies have the support, and this has been measured again and again, of somewhere between 1 and 3% of Americans. But perhaps they can build on that. More from Ace of Spades scumbag David French, who was a desk jockey on a short term in Iraq. I think that's unfair. I really think that's unfair to David French, who was in the JAG. And I've heard some pretty harrowing stories about David French's service. I mean, he was awarded the Bronze Star, not with a Valor device, but a Bronze Star nonetheless. I heard once, and this was particularly terrifying, that the air conditioning went out in the green zone once, and it was 2 hours before it was repaired. 2 hours. Let's see. David French uses Iraq service as his bona fides for suggesting a counterinsurgency campaign to separate Trump supporters from the general population. Ace comments he wants to separate the insurgents from the populace. Do these guys really want Fallujah America? I think they do. These Nazi fascists really do want to wage war on Americans. I've noted this before, but David French always attempts to convey the idea without explicitly stating it that he was a combat soldier in Iraq. When I first heard of him, I thought he was a combat soldier because he always talked as if he were on the front lines. He did very little to disabuse me of that notion. The closest this pathetic Pharisee came to combat was playing flick football with an office mate having a bad case of gas. Yeah. And what does he believe in, David French? Well, he believes in Drag Queen Story Hour. Yeah, he does. He thinks, well, maybe he has a personal objection to it, but no, he is totally against any efforts to stop this monstrousness, this grooming of children, including very young children indeed. Because, I don't know, the Constitution or something. Yes. David A. French, war hero, has reminded us that Drag Queen Story is, quote, one of the blessings of liberty, unquote. Yes. All must swallow the pause. And this comes from no less than National Review. Are these going to be great days again for National Review? How much will they love Joe Biden? I suspect, you know to expect from this crew, that it's all procedural. Oh, the rules weren't followed. Oh, okay. So if the Biden administration decided to put 200 million people from the Congo or both Congos in the United States, that would be perfectly fine if all the rules were followed. Politicians who obsess about procedure, about process, are useless. General, as a rule, people who are obsessed with process are useless. Samantha Power is a very creepy woman, indeed she is. Bruce Springsteen, I don't want to bore you with things you may have heard before, but the Bruce Springsteen of today, or the Bruce Springsteen from the late 1970s, is a very different fellow than when he made his first record in 1972. He was tutored in the ways of righteousness by two men. One, John Landau, who was a writer for Rolling Stone magazine and also a record producer. He produced the MC5's Back in the USA, which is a really good record. And Dave Marsh, who was the editor of Cream magazine back in its glory days. And basically, they turned him into a whiny leftist. And it was a good deal because, of course, Bruce Springsteen, working class Catholic from the Jersey Shore, he wasn't some nearsighted intellectual from Greenwich Village, and I guess it worked. Will Biden last a full term? No, I don't think he will last a full term. But I think that Dr. Jill Biden is going to fight any efforts to 25th Amendment him. I think she would rather look forward to her own Edith Wilson role of being the real president of the United States. Look, Bruce Springsteen, again, I got nothing against show business. I've got nothing against show business moves. Bruce Springsteen, he did the thing where, one more time. And then, no, wait, one more time, especially with that song, Rosalita. And again, I got nothing against that sort of thing, except that Bruce Springsteen was supposed to be anti-showbiz. Mike F. says, Dr. Jill looks like Alice Cooper. I have noticed that. The hair. The way that she wears her hair. Okay, I want to talk about Canada now, because we have a purge going on here. It's the terror in tiny town. It's the Aaron O'Toole story. This is from Canadian Press. Ontario Conservative MP Derek Sloan could be expelled from his party's caucus as early as Tuesday for accepting a donation to his leadership campaign from a white supremacist. Let me just check and see whether Derek Sloan has in fact been expelled from the Conservative caucus. Oh, they're going to vote on this tomorrow, and no prizes for guessing what they're going to do. Sloan accused the party of hypocrisy, saying that Paul Frome, who has been associated with neo-Nazis for years, was a party member and voted in last year's leadership contest, a fact that would have been known to all candidates, including eventual winner Aaron O'Toole, as well as the party itself. If I'm guilty of something, they are guilty of something. This is ridiculous, Sloan told supporters in a Facebook video last Monday night. I'm not going to go down without a fight. I should mention that I used to know Paul Frome. I met him several times. I had kind words for him in the Report magazines back in the 1990s when he was running a civil liberties outfit. I've met him a few times. I haven't had anything to do with him for several years. He is a person who is almost now unknown in Canada, and I don't know that he spends very much time here. But actually, I wrote a story, 20 years ago or so, about him being, it would have been more than 20 years, I guess, of him being ejected from membership in the Canadian Alliance Party. That, Frome gave something like $141 to Derek Sloan's campaign. And of course, the idea that any campaign can be bought for $141 is absurd, but that's not the main point. The main point is that he is supporting Sloan, not the other way round. It is impossible for any campaign to vet its supporters. obviously, if you had prominent supporters or supporters whose support you were touting as evidence of their goodness or whatever, then you'd want to vet them. But any campaign is going to have thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions perhaps of supporters, and you can't vet them, and it doesn't make any difference. The way it's supposed to work in my country is if you buy a membership fee, you get to vote. And I don't think that the Conservative Party of Canada really wants to go into vetting the instant Sikh army that shows up in every leadership campaign, and they showed up for the leadership campaign of Jason Kenney in Alberta. I really don't think that the Liberal and NDP parties want their supporters to be vetted, because if you pull up all of those rocks, you're going to find a lot of nasty things underneath. That would be one thing that the Conservatives could do. They could take the fight to the Liberals and the NDP into the media, but no, they're not going to do that. And apparently, Bloc Québécois leader in Canada is in serious trouble for speaking about a Liberal MP and his leadership position in a prominent Canadian Arab group. But of course, that is evidence of racism. Let's see. The party did not immediately return a request to confirm Fromm's membership, although he noted himself on Twitter that he had registered to attend the upcoming policy convention, which only party members are allowed to do so. Several hours earlier, O'Toole had issued a statement saying that it will seek to have Sloan expelled from the Conservative caucus and will bar him from running for the party in the next election. He said accepting Fromm's donation was far worse than a gross error of judgment or failure of due diligence by his former leadership rival. Racism is a disease of the soul, repugnant to our core values. Yeah, what are our core values, Aaron O'Toole? Free market. It has no place in our country. It has no place in the Conservative Party of Canada. I won't tolerate it. A disease of the soul. Disease of the soul. Okay, Aaron O'Toole believes in the soul. Okay, but apparently the soul is entirely a political entity as far as he is concerned. See, what happened is that January 6th happened, and therefore Aaron O'Toole and the Conservative Party has to start making excuses for Donald Trump. Yeah, that's what happened. Yeah, that's what happened. It's that simple. And O'Toole has been scrambling madly ever since that time. What Donald Trump has to do with the Conservative Party of Canada is an interesting question. He's got nothing to do with it. But apparently, some people who support the Conservative Party have some fond feelings about Donald Trump, and that is inexcusable. Inexcusable. Oh, it says that Fromm has been a fixture in right-wing politics for decades, including participating at events with the neo-Nazi Heritage Front. Do you really want to bring up the Heritage Front, Canadian press? I wonder if Stephanie Levitz knows anything about the Heritage Front. I wonder whether she knows that it was run and funded by the government of Canada. I wonder if she knows that. I wonder if she knows that this organization that was run and funded by the government of Canada intended to put together a hit list of Jewish students at the University of Toronto. I wonder if they know about that or if they care. At the time, there didn't seem to be very much interest in the media or in, the Reform Party as it then was, as to why Brian Mulroney's government had decided to fund and run a neo-Nazi organization in order to disgrace their own party, as well as to infiltrate the South African embassy, South Africa not being an enemy of Canada. But Aaron O'Toole had a slogan, take back Canada. Oh my God, that's just fascist. absolutely fascist. Of course, the NDP party used the same phrase, take back BC, an election campaign in 2009. What they meant was take BC back from the fat cats. But, obviously the advantage of this take back trope is that you can apply it you can apply it in many different ways. Source says Sloan purge about stopping social conservatives at party convention. Social conservatives. Social conservatives in Canada are among the stupidest people in the world. Years ago, I came up with the parable of the social conservative. That one day a social conservative was seen in Canada beating his head against the wall. Several years later, he was seen still beating his head against the wall, and he was asked, "Why do you keep doing this?" And he replied, "What, and let them win?" Yes. Doug Ford, Premier of Ontario, solicited support from social conservatives, and as soon as he got it, sufficient to win the leadership of the Progressive Conservative Party in Canada, he ousted them. He ousted their leading spokeswoman. And give us your support and we will kick you in the crotch. That is what the leaders of the conservative parties in Canada say to social conservatives. But every election cycle, Campaign Life and other anti-abortion organizations, they rate the candidates based on their opposition or possible opposition to abortion, notwithstanding the fact that nothing is going to change about Canada's abortion laws because it's been decided that nothing can be done. We can't have an abortion law. Let's see, Dave Naylor in the Western Standard says, the senior conservative said O'Toole is trying to stop Sloan and his ally Campaign Life from electing enough delegates they could push through their own strong social agenda. That's never going to happen because anyone who supported any effort to have an abortion law in Canada, we don't have any regulation of abortion, would be expelled from the party. I don't know. I've talked to people from Campaign Life going way back, and they seem to me to be very good-hearted people because abortion is a terrible evil. But I just don't know really how to explain their stupidity. I really don't. Yes, the Campaign Life people are very well organized and have been recruiting people to try and get them to go to the convention. It doesn't matter. It makes no difference at all. We have the Conservative Party has nothing against legalized prostitution, which our Supreme Court decided was a core Canadian value. The Conservative Party has nothing against legalized euthanasia and the expansion of legalized euthanasia, or physician-assisted murder, as I call it. Apparently, it's a crying shame that there are depressed teenagers in Canada who can't call up a doctor to kill them. Can you imagine how shocking that is? Oh, let's see what our great leader, Princess Rockstar, a.k.a. Justin Trudeau, has to say. According to Amanda Colony at Global News, he is pleased to see Conservative leader Erin O'Toole attempting to remove a frequently condemned member of his caucus over campaign contributions from a man who has been described as a neo-Nazi. He said, political parties need to remain vigilant, particularly in the wake of what we've seen in the United States from the infiltration or the active presence of fringe or extremist or violent or unacceptable or intolerant elements, said Trudeau, and asked about the decision. That's something that we constantly need to work towards as all politicians in Canada. The Liberal Party has been calling for Erin O'Toole to remove Derek Sloan from caucus for many, many months, now following a number of unacceptable comments that he has made. Yes, so very unacceptable. This is what the media, the elite, the Democratic Party in the United States wants. They want it to be exactly like Canada, where then it's more than your job's worth. It's more than your life is worth almost to speak out against the prevailing narrative. Shocking comments from Derek Sloan when he ran for the leadership of the Conservative Party last year. He went on to elaborate that he felt that the science of whether sexual orientation is a choice is unclear. Oh my God. Oh my God. Sloan stated that if elected leader, he would permit conservative MPs to reopen the abortion debate or introduce private member bills aimed at overturning same-sex marriage. He also voiced opposition to Bill C-16, which protects people from discrimination on the basis of gender identity. Oh, gender identity. You mean 12-year-old girls deciding they're boys and taking puberty blockers and then having their breasts cut off? Yeah, that's what gender identity means. He also vowed to vote against a federal ban on the pseudo-scientific practice of conversion therapy, arguing that parents should be able to make children identify with the body they are born with. You see how shocking and out there this conservative is? Clearly unacceptable in Canada. And if you go to the website of the Toronto Star, they're having a great time with this, obviously, for the reason that I wonder if they can hardly believe it, that they get to decide what their enemies are allowed to believe in, what they're allowed to say. They get to decide because they're, well, morally superior. The Conservative Party of Canada is a pale imitation of the Liberal Party of Canada, which has now fully embraced identity politics. After Doug Ford dumped one of the candidates who was running as an MPP in Ontario because of her unforgivable social conservative beliefs, he hired a radical lesbian activist, Melissa Lantsman, as his spokeswoman, chief of communications. She, of course, is now running for a federal seat in Ontario. Shri Pradkar, who, of course, was born in India, educated there to the university level, then immigrated to Singapore, which I guess she didn't like too much, and she ended up here in Canada. Oh, lucky us, where she lectures us on a weekly basis on how evil white people are and how wicked Canada has been from the beginning. She writes, today, Erin O'Toole's dumping of Derek Sloan over $131 donation sidesteps an existential reckoning the Conservative Party really needs. Yes, existential reckoning. The existential reckoning the Conservative Party really needs is to just disband. It stands for nothing. It stands for even less than the Liberal Party does, because the Liberal Party stands very strongly for big business in Canada getting ever bigger and rich Canadians, very rich Canadians, getting ever richer. It also stands unequivocally for a Chinese takeover of Canada. Shri Pradkar, she witters on about equality. I've seen video of her appearing in public wearing a caste mark. Yes, that's right. I guess she sees nothing untoward about that. And do I have anything more to say about my benighted country today? I was speaking of that woman who curated or co-curated Biden and Kamala's list of chart toppers most influential. Well, here's a fatuous entry in that genre from Maclean's magazine, The Power List. 50 Canadians who are breaking ground, leading the debate, and shaping how we think and live. Me Too, Black Lives Matter, blah, blah, blah. Okay, number one, Pierre Trudeau. Okay, that makes sense. Number two, Tobias Lutke, described as the Wolf of Main Street. He is the founder of Shopify. Okay. Number three is Joyce Echequan. Number three, Did she contemplate in those final moments that the gut-wrenching footage would spark a national outrage, that her memory would be honored in nationwide vigils, the circumstances around her death decried with widespread protest? Joyce Echequan, a 37-year-old Akitamek mother of 7 from the community of Manawan, died not long after her Facebook live stream. It showed staff at a Joliet, Quebec hospital insulting her, swearing she'd be better off dead, as she begged for help. I don't know how influential a dead person can be, but I follow the Canadian news very closely, and I must confess that I had never heard of this woman until this Maclean's list. Bonnie Henry, who of course is the chief latrine walla of British Columbia, comes in at number 5. Doug Ford comes in at number 7. Adieu, feckless populism. The strange new respect. In pro wrestling, it's known as the face turn, when the heel, whom fans love to boo, suddenly becomes their favorite. By casting aside partisanship to handle the pandemic, Doug Ford shot from the lowest approval rating among premiers to second highest. He sympathizes with small business owners. Sure he does. Yet slams anti-maskers and has talks with Chrystia Freeland that the Liberal finance minister calls therapy sessions. Where's the Toronto councillor who once took a morning off to watch his brother-in-law arm wrestle Hulk Hogan? Number 8, Sandy Hudson. Again, who is this person? Seriously, does this even say who she is? She's the person that Canadian media reached out to after George Floyd was killed, because, that's a real Canadian story, whatever happens in Minneapolis. Less publicized, but of even greater impact, was the organization's role in canceling a program that placed police officers in Toronto's public school. And this is just manufacturing consent. Teresa Tam, Canada's chief latrine walla, comes in at number 12. Retired Supreme Court justices come in at number 15. Yeah, okay. Wes Hall, business attacking racist systems, starting at the top, comes in at number 16. When I walk into a boardroom and I'm treated like I'm a mail boy or another low-level employee, the people in that room are not used to seeing people like me in that context. Does he get treated like a mail boy or another low-level employee? The executive chairman and founder of Toronto-based Kingsdale Advisors. Again, look, there are hundreds of people, maybe thousands of people you've never heard of in the Prime Minister's office or Privy Council or whatever, or in the Justice Department bureaucracy, who are more influential, more powerful than almost anyone on this list. But these lists are simply about manufacturing consent. Let's go back to the chat. Yako Raipala says, our right-wing party, originally strict monarchists founded by the white victors of the 1918 Civil War, is doing the same stuff. Crusade against conversion therapy, pro-mass migration, pro-NATO, etc. It's my understanding that Finland doesn't have all that many migrants in its country and doesn't take in all that many immigrants. Is that changing? Jonathan Paul says, except for KMG, are there any white Canadians left? Or not? Are they all not honorary Indians by now? Well, just to use a little profanity here, years ago, talking with Kevin Steele on my old podcast, I said, that there's a class of people who are very wealthy and they have power to ignore idiots as a result. And you call that fuck you money. On the other hand, there's another class of people who have so little that they can or expect so little in the future that they are in the same position. And I dubbed it fuck you poverty. For a white person to be successful in Canada now, it's just too grim to think of. It's too humiliating to think of, because they must grovel continuously. They must put out of their mind everything they know to be true and extol the opposite. Jonathan Pohl, no Mennonites in Italy, but most Mennonites in Western Ukraine welcomed the Wehrmacht by saving them from deportation to Kazakhstan. Leo Tolstoy was responsible for Mennonites coming to my own province of British Columbia, which led to some difficulties sometime later when a radical group, the Sons of Freedom Doukhobors, decided to embarrass people and worse by finding in the Bible a mandate against wearing clothing. Jaakko Raipala says Finland has some of the fastest population replacement in Europe right now. It's like Ireland. It was more conservative for a few extra decades, but then the pause hit extra hard. Have these people been suborned? Have they been bought off? Because Finland has had the advantage of looking at its neighbors, Sweden and Norway, to give two examples to see the fruits of that policy. It was sometime, in the mid-90s that I wrote something about Norway that ended up in anti-racism textbooks that I had noted that circa 1996 or circa 1996, the government of Norway was making brochures, pamphlets, to be given to newcomers to that country. And one of the things it pointed out is, please don't rape women. We don't do that here. And my noting of this was thought to be incendiary in some way. Okay. Also go on the Ralph retort again. They liked you. Send an email, says PK Teller. Well, I'll think about it. Okay. Roulette Cracked says, after inauguration, I'm going on a 3-month news blackout. You just have to see it with my own eyes. I cannot believe this is actually happening. If it does, I will just tune out. Well, yes, the number of people who, Twitter followers that I am losing, it just scores every day. Again, Twitter has told people on the right, even the moderate right, we don't want you on our platform. So they are leaving. Okay. The first okay, why don't we, yeah. All right, let's move on. Let's move on here. And, okay. Oh, yes, trans fever. Catch it. We've all heard about this woman. And now she's rising to the top. This is from the Chicago Tribune. Biden picks Rachel Levine, who drew credit and criticism for handling of PA's COVID-19 crisis as Assistant Health Secretary. Oh, she drew credit, did she? She became a familiar figure to many Pennsylvanians over the last 10 months of the coronavirus pandemic, explaining what the state was doing to combat the spread of the virus and begging residents to do their part by wearing a mask, washing their hands, and staying away from each other because human contact is deadly. Stay calm, stay alert, and stay safe. I thought she was going to say stay fresh, the state health secretary said over and over. Levine, one of the few transgender people nationwide serving in either elective office or as a high-ranking government appointee, was announced Tuesday as Joe Biden's pick to be Assistant Secretary of Health. She will bring the steady leadership and essential expertise we need to get people through this pandemic, no matter their zip code, race, religion, sexual orientation, gender identity, or disability. Sexual orientation is a weasel phrase, which was largely invented as a euphemism for homosexuality. Why it is still used, this is curious, and I think it's important. Because homosexuality is extolled to the skies, as is transgenderism, as are all manner of paraphilias. But sexual orientation is largely a meaningless term that one may be orientated towards certain sexual behaviors. If one does not act on them, it doesn't matter, in the same way that some people are orientated towards, various criminal activities or antisocial activities. If they don't act on them, then it's irrelevant. I see this as akin to this talk of love is love. Now, that's a universal statement. If love is love, then how can incest be banned? How can bestiality be banned? How can pedophilia be banned if love is love? If love triumphs, if no form of love is superior to any other form of love. Sexual orientation. Oh, we have there are bans against persecuting or prejudice against any kind of sexual orientation. Any kind of sexual orientation, because that's what it says in many laws. Well, what about the things I just mentioned? I see this as a Trojan horse. No question about it. Let's see. Yes, first transgender, etc., etc. Oh, Rachel Levine became the public face of the response to COVID-19 and won plaudits for her calm, unflappable demeanor. But she also earned plenty of enmity from Republicans and small business owners over statewide public health orders for people to stay at home, students to learn remotely, and businesses deemed non-life sustaining to close. They actually use that term, non-life sustaining. Poise. Oh, here we go. Let's bury this. Let's bury this in paragraph 20 or whatever. Levine faced tough questions over the high COVID death toll at nursing homes, with some Republicans contending the state didn't go far enough to protect vulnerable residents. The state has reported more than 19,000 deaths attributed to COVID-19, over half of which have occurred in nursing homes. Levine defended her agency's handling of the outbreak. As a transgender woman, she endured a stream of mockery and abuse on social media and elsewhere. She opened a news conference last July by addressing the transphobia that was being directed toward her. This alleged transphobia did not prevent her from becoming the chief medical officer of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Now, did it? And is there anything in this story about her, like Governor Death in New York, forcing infected people into care homes? No, there is not. Is there anything in this story about her removing her own parents from a care home before she forced the infected people? I don't know. Perhaps Daniel Dale of CNN should fact check this story. Of course, you could look at pictures of Rachel Levine on Google image search or DuckDuckGo. I do not recommend this, okay? You could well burst into tears, but you might burst into laughter. You could start screaming, okay? Don't show these pictures to children. Don't. Just, some sort of blocker on their computers and mobile devices so they do not have access to those pictures. Oh, yes, this is from Nylon. Important PSA from our January cover star, Phoebe Bridges. See the musician share the 8 things that made her career. And here's some vital advice from Phoebe Bridges. I do not want to misgender this person, so I'm just going to call this person this person. And here's the advice. Here we go. Be nice, but take no shit, and pee after sex. Is that some sort of trans thing? Okay. Apparently, this person had a relationship with Ryan Adams, which, if true, makes me look at Ryan Adams in an entirely different light. But yes, I was looking at stories about this person, Phoebe, and I learned that the alphabet people are crowing that essentially they have taken over the popular music business, which might have something to do with the fact that all of these people that you see and their tremendous sales, it's widely believed that they're faked, that the charts are now wholly manipulated. But wait, there's more. This is from the National Farmers Union. I didn't know that farmers had a union. I don't know how powerful it is. But many people think rural America is overwhelmingly white, straight, and conservative. No, there are very few white, straight, and conservative people in rural America. Everybody knows that. Of course, Major Tom Nichols, he regularly blasts rural America as overwhelmingly white, straight, and conservative, also stupid and losers. Could he be wrong? Could Major Tom be wrong? But the National Farmers Union informs us, in reality, it's actually fairly diverse. Just asks the transgender alpaca ranchers behind tenacious unicorn ranch. Quote, "We belong here. Queers are reclaiming country spaces. They're also reclaiming the word queer, which was supposed to be a deadly insult. But now it's like that other word that's 6 letters long, that it's to be celebrated if they use it, but it is a hate crime if the rest of us use it. Alpacas, huh? Back when I was a reporter, this was the thing that came up, alpacas all the time. That alpaca was one of those rare animals, or rare animals in North America, that, everyone is eating alpaca now. Are they? No. And there was some other ostrich. Yes, have you had ostrich meat? Oh, it's just so delicious. Soon enough, we're all going to be eating ostrich meat. Nope, never happened. But now that the trans queers are behind alpaca ranching, perhaps it's going to soar in popularity. Hey, just a heads up, this is again from the National Farmers Union. If you post transphobic nonsense here, we will not hesitate to block you. Someone had commented, that's a man, also nice rifle. The National Farmers Union is indefatigable. Your comment is evidence why queer people feel the need to reclaim rural spaces. Also, your winky face doesn't distract from the transphobia and intentional misgendering in your tweet. Okay, all right. So even ranchers are trans and queer now. Another Biden miracle. Oh, by the way, I was, apropos of nothing at all, a few days ago, I was talking about this show, a private eye show from the 70s called Mannix, starting the most intense actor since, Paul Muni or John Garfield. And Mannix is always punching people in the mouth. Every episode I've ever seen, he punches someone in the mouth. He smacks women around too, but only if they deserve it. So I had talked about an episode I remembered, from circa 1970, that's 51 years ago, in which Mannix single-handedly prevents a neo-Nazi takeover of the United States of America. Now, I mentioned this on the air, but, given how long ago it was, and given how all these shows tend to, blend into each other over time, I was thinking, did that really happen? Was there really such a show? Well, early this morning, and I only caught about 20 minutes of it because it was quite late, there was an episode of Mannix called To Cage a Seagull. All Quinn Martin productions had titles like that. Tonight's episode. My favorite generic version of that, I quite like this. I'm quite proud of it. Tonight's episode, Requiem for a Nightingale. Anyway, To Cage a Seagull from 1970 is about an attempted neo-Nazi takeover of the United States, which is single-handedly foiled by Mannix. He's got plenty of opportunities to bring the police in, but no, he's got to do it by himself. And I was looking at the viewer reviews. One of them from Martin Hafer says, I didn't particularly care for To Cage a Seagull. It simply had too many dumb plot problems. Plus, episodes about neo-Nazis and the like are pretty hard to take very seriously. Let's see. However, when the neo-Nazis come along, things got pretty dumb and the plot holes started appearing. First, Joe learns that the killing of a friend of his, whom he was going to go golfing with, might be related to the supposed death of a neo-Nazi leader who was a wanted man. You would think he would immediately call the police about this, especially when they're working on the case together. But no. When he is naturally captured, the neo-Nazis turn out to be dumb. They tell him their plans, and instead of killing him immediately, they put him in a room where he might just be able to escape. And then they plan on killing him in the next morning. I mentioned before that the Mannix was the two men, Lincoln Levinson, who came up with Columbo. They created the show, but Bruce Geller, I don't know, he further created the show. He's given a co-credit. Bruce Geller was the creator of Mission Impossible. And again, in Mission Impossible, you get all these neo-Nazis are taking over Europe, or they're taking over America. And neo-Nazis were not about to take over Europe or America or anywhere else in the 1960s or the 1970s or today. You know, when your movement leads to the immolation of a country, and the loss of about 30-40% of its land mass forever. Yeah, that's not coming back. But it is awfully convenient for Hollywood, and it's been convenient for Hollywood for a long time to pretend that the neo-Nazis are coming back. You see that in The Twilight Zone. The Twilight Zone has 3 types of episodes. There's the fey, whimsical episodes that I just find boring. There's the Nazis are coming back, which I find risible. And then there's the good ones, the good episodes. But, okay. So, yes. Gender heteronormativity. Don't you just hate it? Let's see, this is from the Daily Mail. The way we play card games could be set to change forever after a forensic psychology graduate in the Netherlands, because of course, created a brand new deck without any kings, queens, or jacks. And the exclamation point is in the original. Card fan Indy Melink, 23, initially came up with the idea while explaining the rules of a game to her cousins, at which point the subtle inequality of having a king be more valuable than a queen dawned on her. How about the subtle inequality of an ace? After some encouragement from her father, Indy decided to design her own deck with gold, silver, and bronze in place of the king, queen, and jack cards. And I'm looking at a picture of this young woman, and she's actually rather attractive, which is a surprise. Chess pieces. Oh, the game of chess. What is the most powerful piece in the game of chess? Why, that would be the queen, wouldn't it? The king, rather a helpless figure in the game of chess and must be protected at all times while the queen is rampaging around the board. Is anyone carrying on about the iniquity of the queen being so valuable and the king being so weak? But standard chess set is called the Escondido set. Comes from about 1850, and it quickly came to dominate. You often see chess shown in movies or on TV where they have non-standard, non-Staunton pieces, and you're looking at them like, what is that? What is that piece? I don't know what that piece is. All tournaments use it, Staunton designs. In fact, all serious players use the Staunton designs for the reason that when you bring in these weirdo chess pieces, no one knows what the pieces are. And I suppose this woman has got a lot of publicity, and she may get some idiots to buy these decks, but no one is going to play them because they won't recognize the cards. Okay, and are we moving on to John Boyega? Yes, we're moving on to John Boyega. He's back in the news again, and I don't really know why he's back in the news again, because apparently a great wrong was done to him, because there's not all that much of him, in the third Star Wars of the trilogy that just ended. And apparently he was supposed to be right up there, one of the #1 characters. This may have been, this is from Okiro, or the first Okiro. John Boyega's Finn was set up as the male lead and co-protagonist of the sequel trilogy. That's not an opinion. That's not a headcanon. Huh? That's a literally fact. He was set up to be equal with Ray and Kylo's foil, and we all know why that changed. Oh, racism, I guess. Huh? It could be because he didn't go over very well with the audience. He is not a good actor. He is not an interesting actor. He is not a good-looking man. He seems dull. There are some actors who are not smart, who can play smart. He is not one of them. And there was some sort of romantic subplot with someone called Rose Tico, I believe, some pudgy Vietnamese woman. This did not go over very well. John Boyega also saw fit to attack rather vehemently Disney, or Star Wars, Lucasfilm. Not wise. But they're at it again. That I guess with Joe Biden being elected president, this time Kathleen Kennedy is going to just shove this down our throats, and it will be like Coupon, the movie from Mr. Show, where we will all be forced by judicial order, to see the ultra woke Star Wars. Revan's king of unpopular opinions tweets, "I don't care what justifications people can give. Finn was set up to be a stormtrooper turned Jedi, and both the fans and John Boyega were robbed of that." It often happens in dramatic productions that the people in charge of them look at the reactions or look at the footage that they've got and decide that, we're going to have to downgrade this fellow's character and upgrade someone else's character. Of course, all sorts of famous examples of this. The Fonz wasn't supposed to be the star of Happy Days, but he popped, as they say. So the whole show was turned upside down in order to make him the focus of it. David Pinson writes amusingly, "Let John Boyega play all the characters in the next Star Wars movie. It's what the fans deserve." I don't know if you're familiar with this. What happened is that we were told that the Star Wars trilogy, the latest one, was just going to be so diverse, so multicultural, and they were going to push the bounds of sexuality as well. And the first movie did all right. Second movie, not so good. Third movie, even worse. And this led to a reaction against the whole Star Wars brand, with the Solo movie actually losing money, which was considered to be unthinkable. And I don't know, Kathleen Kennedy's was supposed to be up for the chop, but I guess it was decided at Disney that no, she is untouchable. It's her leadership of Star Wars is, as Tom Wolfe would say, an unscrewable pooch. Jamal tweets, "Last year, John Boyega stood up for Black lives and said he feared that his career would be on the line." Yeah. This year, after Ray Fisher spoke up about racism in the workplace, he lost job opportunities. Why is that we should fear our livelihoods when we speak up to protect ourselves? Is that's why people in Hollywood speak up to protect themselves, or because they want more publicity? I'm noticing something ugly that's going on here, where minority actors are apparently, they've run this up the flagpole, that they are unfireable from any projects, regardless of their behavior on the set. And I don't know. Perhaps I should be cheering this on. I talk about a movie every week on this live stream. There are not very many movies that I have talked about, going back to when I did this on Luke Ford's live stream, that were made after the year 2000. And there have been good movies made since the year 2000. And there were lots of mediocre, crummy movies made before the year 2000, and even in the so-called various golden ages of Hollywood. They weren't really crummy by design, and they are all crummy by design now. I don't want to see whole solar systems blow up. I do not want to see people in spandex prancing in front of a green screen in every movie. I am fed up with tent poles. Apparently, the idea that anyone in Hollywood could come up with an original idea and this could end up on the screen is now rather shocking. But I don't know. Given what John Boyega looks like and how poor an actor he is, I would thought that he might be grateful to have a career at all, but that's not how it works anymore. Let's go back to the chat here. If there were only more 80s franchises to reboot. Now, don't. Just in recent years, with The Thing and RoboCop, and there are others, that Hollywood is seemingly determined to find every movie that I love and ruin it. Can you name a movie you walked out of? I don't know that I can remember it. It was a movie starring Ewan McGregor that I took one of my daughters to, and I was not warned in the advertising that this movie was completely unsuitable for children. Just horrifying, disgusting scenes in it, and I suppose I should have remonstrated with the staff of the theater, but I was so shocked, and I was in such a fury that I grabbed my little girl and I hauled her out of the theater. Ewan McGregor has been in so many films. I suppose if I did some researching, I could find this out, but I'm not going to do that now. There have been movies that I've fallen asleep in. I fell asleep during Mulan. I fell asleep during The Matrix. I fell asleep during Born Free. Yeah. The American President, it was vile and cringe. Also Street Fighter. Well, I'll find this out later. I'll do some research. I walked out of Solo 25 minutes in. All of the blame for this, leave aside that the original team behind the movie were fired and replaced with Ron Howard. And 50, 60, 70% of the movie was recast. I don't know. They had Donald Glover in this film, and Donald Glover is one of the funniest men on earth. And I've seen the trailers, and I've seen lots of scenes from it. Why isn't Donald Glover funny? Why would you put Donald Glover in your film if he wasn't going to be funny? Also, there was a really vicious behind-the-scenes campaign against Alden Ehrenreich. Oh, that he's a terrible actor, that he's useless. Oh, that they had to give him acting lessons on screen or whatever. Alden Ehrenreich was in Hail Caesar. I thought that he was excellent in that. But somebody's got to be blamed for it. Okay. Russell Crowe is incredible at playing a genius, strangely, says Head McNeck. I saw him in a buddy comedy, sort of a buddy police procedural comedy a few years ago. He was surprisingly funny in that. I didn't think he had it in him. Go is chess for self-satisfied narcissists, says Head McNeck. I don't know about that. I know very little about it. Roulette Crack says they changed Bobby Fischer to a woman. I don't really think that is true. I really don't think that is true. The novel that it was based on is not new. It is based, let's see if I can pull this up here. The Queen's Gambit. Yes, and it is based on a novel by Walter Tevis. Walter Tevis has had many of his novels made into films, including The Hustler, The Color of Money, and The Man Who Fell to Earth. I don't know. I think Tevis had the idea, what if you had a really great chess player who was a woman? This was before Judith Polgar. It is an interesting idea. I haven't seen the show. The woman who stars in it, Anya Taylor-Joy, she was in The Witch, which I really liked and which I thought she was excellent in. Tevis had serious problems throughout his life with substances, and many of his works feature that in them, as does this one, I believe. Okay, let's talk about James Burnham here and the Machiavellians. And once again, why am I spending so much detail on this book? Well, because this is the book that explains how the world really works. Everything that you learn, I don't know, political science classes and the like, or what politicians tell you or the elite tells you, is false. It is simply false. The world is run by elites and will always be run by the elites. And within these elites, oligarchies form, and there is an iron law of oligarchy, which we will get to. The people who run our lives are not the best and the brightest. They are self-selected. So, chapter 4, Machiavelli's practical goal. Burnham writes, Dante's De Monarchia is in no respect a scientific study of politics. It is not, however, as is sometimes supposed, the mere fact that Dante has ethical aims or goals that make his treatise, or any treatise making use of similar methods, unscientific. All human activities have goals, usually several of them, open or hidden, whether or not admitted by the actor. The activity of scientific investigation is no exception. Machiavelli, like Dante, has goals and practical aims that he pursues in his work. But they are very different from those that we've discovered in Dante. There are certain goals which are peculiar and proper to science, without which science does not exist. These are the accurate and systematic description of public facts, the attempt to correlate sets of these facts in laws, and through these correlations, the attempt to predict with some degree of probability future facts. Many scientific investigations do not try to go beyond these special goals, nor is there any need for them to do so. In the field of historical, social, and political science, as in other sciences, these goals might be, and sometimes are, alone relevant. But without these goals, whether or not there are also others, an inquiry is not scientific. These special goals are not present in De Monarchia. They could not be served by Dante's methods. In Machiavelli's writings, in contrast, they are always present, and they control the logic of his investigations. If an inquiry is to remain scientific, but nevertheless pursue other goals than those that are peculiar to science, there are certain requirements which the additional goals must meet. In the first place, they must be non-transcendental. That is, they must be something formulated in terms of the actual world of space and time and history. Second, they must have at least a minimum probability of realization. For example, a scientist might have as his goal the development of a drug to cure tuberculosis or some other disease, a new defensive weapon to counteract the offensive threat or missiles, or a new fertilizer that would also help plants resist blights and insects, or a new method of transmitting electric power without wires. All of these goals are located in the actual world. They are all sufficiently specific to permit us to know what we are talking about, and what is not unimportant, to tell whether or not they are reached. And all would have at least a certain minimum chance of being achieved. We noticed, however, that Dante's formal goals were either transcendental, as in the case of his religious or metaphysical ideals, or as in the case of his plan for an eternally unified and peaceful world empire, too wildly improbable to be worth debating. We also noticed that his real goals, hidden behind the formal goals, were, though scientific and specific enough, vengeful and reactionary. Again, I will mention, if you look to the present day, we are going to end world poverty. We are going to end racism. We are going to end sexism. I could go on and on. These are not real world goals. They are transcendental and thus unachievable. Burnham continues, There is a further strict requirement by which science limits the function of goals or aims. The goals themselves are not evidence. They cannot be allowed to distort facts or the correlations among facts. Again, the goals themselves are not evidence. Well, we're going to eliminate racism. Yeah. The goal, that's all there is. There's nothing else. How could one measure whether racism were eliminated? There's considerable disagreement about what racism even means, let alone concepts like white supremacy, say. But I mean, this is to the advantage of this formal goal, because who could be against eliminating racism? The goals express our wishes, hopes, or fears, Burnham continues. They therefore prove nothing about the facts of the world. No matter how much we may wish to cure a patient, the wish has nothing to do with the objective analysis of his symptoms or a correct prediction of the probable course of the disease or an estimate of the probable effects of a medicine. If our aim is peace, this does not entitle us, from the point of view of science, to falsify human nature and the facts of social life in order to pretend to prove that all men naturally desire peace, which history so clearly tells us they plainly do not. And yes, of course, Andrew Carnegie, the great industrialist and philanthropist, sincerely believed that peace was the future, that peace could be brought about by international action, and he endowed a great foundation along these lines. There were various attempts to ban warfare after the First World War, and we see where they ended up. If we are interested in an equalitarian democracy, this cannot be a scientific excuse for ignoring the uninterrupted record of natural social inequality and oppression. In short, though our practical goals may dictate the direction that scientific activity takes, though they show us what we are trying to accomplish by the scientific investigation, what problem we are trying to solve, nevertheless, the logic of the scientific inquiry itself is not controlled by the practical aims, but by science's own aims, by the effort to describe facts and correlate them. In this respect, too, Dante violates the demand of science. His treatise is merely the elaborate projection of his wish. It tells us nothing. So here, Burnham moves on to Machiavelli, who's a hero to Burnham and to others, because Machiavelli was about the real world, not about fantasy. Burnham continues, Machiavelli's chief immediate practical goal is the national unification of Italy. There are other practical aims in his writings, some of them more general, and I shall discuss them later on. To make Italy a nation, a unified state, is, however, central and constant. Compared to Dante's glittering ideals, this goal is doubtless humble, almost sordid. In any case, it is specific and meaningful. We all know what a national state in the modern sense means. Machiavelli, writing in the first quarter of the 16th century, and his contemporaries, with the example of France and England and Spain fresh before them, knew what the goal meant. Moreover, the goal was neither wild nor fantastic. It was accomplished elsewhere in Europe during those times, and there was no reason to think it too improbable an accomplishment in Italy. In the case of Dante, we had distinguished carefully between the formal presumed goals and the hidden real goals. In Machiavelli, as in all scientific writing, there is no such distinction. Formal and real are one, open and explicit. The last chapter of The Prince is plainly entitled An Exhortation to Deliver Italy from the Barbarians, that is, foreigners. In it, Machiavelli calls for a champion to rally Italy for the task of unification. Machiavelli's careful treatise on the art of war and the lengthy discussions of war in his discourses on Livy have an ever-present aim of showing Italians how they can learn to fight in such a way as to beat back the forces of France and the Empire and Spain, and therefore control their own destiny as an Italian nation. The history of Florence finds in the stories of the past a traditional spirit that can be linked with arms in the struggle. The examples of ancients and moderns joined in the discourses on Livy show the direction along the political road. See, this is a problem with utopian aims, such as the elimination of poverty. Well, what does poverty mean? Anyway, because we have something now called relative poverty, and I'm not going to discount the various kinds of anguish that people who are less well off than others, even though if by world standards, they are quite well off. I'm not going to discount this because it is real. But there is no definition of poverty. There's no definition of racism. There's no definition of sexism. None of these things are real. Machiavelli, he looks to the past. He finds examples in the past of things that were done. And if they were done once, they could be done again, is his point. No one can point to the past and say, oh, we are going to control the climate via a war against man's eternal enemy, carbon. Or, oh, let's look to the past when we eliminated sexism and racism and poverty, let alone homophobia and transphobia, etc., etc. There are no such examples, which suggests exceedingly strongly that this is utopian and not realizable. But as Thomas Molnar, the Hungarian writer, pointed out, the belief that in the future there will be no more utopian schemes is itself a utopian belief. Burnham continues, there's nothing ambiguous about this goal of making Italy a nation. Anyone reading Machiavelli could accept it or reject it, and doing so would know exactly what he was accepting or rejecting. There are no dreams or ghosts in Machiavelli. He lives and writes in the daylight world. The fragmentation of Italy had left it open to an uninterrupted series of invasions by adventurers, junior members of royal families, knights returning from the Crusades, kings and emperors. Control over cities and territories shifted every decade, from Normans to Spaniards to Frenchmen to local bosses to Germans to popes and back again. Nevertheless, the amazing city-states of the north had made Italy during the 14th and 15th century the center of Europe. It is hard for us today, thinking in terms of modern nations or of the great regional superstates now being built through the present war, that is World War II, to understand how important these cities were in those times. We must remember that the cities had their period of chief influence and power against the background of a predominantly feudal agriculture Europe. Moreover, the primitive economy, the lack of manufacture for the market, of money exchange, of extensive foreign trade, of easy transportation and communication meant the absence of a socioeconomic basis for lasting large-scale political units. In the first stages of the breakup of feudalism, those who were aiming toward the national political system, which was later to win out, were working at a disadvantage. They were ahead of their times, trying to erect too weighty a structure on an unfinished foundation. The cities thus had a head start, but the very factors that had brought their early advantage were, by the 16th century, when Machiavelli was writing, turning them toward ruin. As the New World began to take more definitive form, these first children of the world were already old and socially decadent. They were rich, easy, luxurious have-powers for all their small number of acres. They were ready to let others do their fighting for them, to rely, as Machiavelli 1,000 times upbraids them, on money and treaties, not on the strength and virtue of their own citizens. And I will return to this chapter on Introduction to Machiavelli and Italy tomorrow. I want to talk about Eric Clapton now. Not the first time I've talked about him, but there is a call to cancel him again. This is very strange. To what extent this is coordinated, I don't know. But a song called Cocaine by J.J. Cale was being talked about because of, for some reason, something to do with, Donald Trump Jr.? Cocaine. Okay, so Jesse Stutzman tweets, the only time I want to see Eric Clapton trending if he's dead or he's repudiated his racism and is signing over his fortune to all the black people he stole from. Otherwise, he can F off. Eric Clapton's never stolen any money from black people. Oh, he plays blues, wrote blues songs, and that's stealing from black people. Okay, fine. If you want to make that trade, I'm willing to make that trade. I have a certain fondness for blues music and other black musical forms, particularly soul music. If we want to make the trade that only black people can do that and not white people, then I'm afraid we're going to have to be honest about this. There's going to have to be reciprocity. So Black people will just have to abandon all forms of Western music, both classical and popular, and all of the various instruments, devices, processes of the West. Do Black people want to make that trade? I don't think they want to make that trade. Oh, Hunter Keegan reminds us that Eric Clapton is racist and his music is not very memorable in the first place. Oh, okay. Well, Eric Clapton has been making music for over 50 years, and people are still listening to it. That doesn't mean they're going to be listening to it in another 50 years, but apparently people have found his music memorable enough to listen to it for more than half a century. And Clapton made a rant, possibly drunken rant, in 1976 about non-white immigrants to Britain. This is well known. This is not a surprise. This has been brought up again and again. Keep Britain white. That's how he ended his rant. And he also spoke of his admiration for Enoch Powell. And he has refused to renounce Enoch Powell, which is one of the reasons I like Eric Clapton. I've listened to Eric Clapton's music pretty much, from the time of the Yardbirds, actually, even before Cream. And I don't like all of it. There's some of it I like rather a lot, and I listen to his music fairly regularly. Bradley Whitford, who I believe is an actor, says the fact that Eric Clapton turned out to be a racist moron is depressing, but colonialists always thought they were doing the people they stole from a favor. Again, this imputation that Clapton is stealing people, which he's not. Bradley Whitford, a fairly white guy. Native Indian? Is he? Ranting against colonists. He's also an actor. What does he create that is original? So a great number of people on Twitter pointed out the shocking fact that Eric Clapton did not write the song Cocaine. You could have knocked me over with a feather. Do these people really believe that the celebutards that they follow, the celebutarts that they follow, write their own songs? They have writing credits on a lot of these songs. Money has changed hands for them to get these credits. Apparently, individuals or bands using songs written by other people is now considered to be disreputable for some reason, not authentic enough. I don't know. Frank Sinatra didn't write songs. Is he somehow inauthentic? No. Okay, and there's also been this suggestion that somehow Eric Clapton stole something from J.J. Cale. J.J. Cale from Tulsa, Oklahoma. He was pretty obscure for quite some time. And then in 1970, after Delaney Bramlett suggested it, Eric Clapton recorded a song by J.J. Cale called After Midnight. And this is what J.J. Cale had to say about this. I was dirt poor, not making enough to eat, and I wasn't a young man. I was in my 30s, so I was very happy. It was nice to make some money. So we got After Midnight. We've got Cocaine. There is an album that the two of them made together called The Road to Escondido. Let's put it this way. Eric Clapton has put millions of dollars into the pocket of J.J. Cale. He also raised him from obscurity. There was a beer commercial from Michelob in 1987 wherein Clapton re-recorded After Midnight. And that must have been very lucrative indeed for J.J. Cale. I pointed out that Eric Clapton gave Willie Dixon Soul Publishing credit for the song Spoonful. His many recordings of this song generated hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars. It's not Eric Clapton's fault that the Chess Brothers stole Willie Dixon's money. Of course, Eric Clapton served as a lead guitarist for an album called the Howlin' Wolf Sessions, I believe in 1970, where Eric, he got all the top British musicians to record an album with Howlin' Wolf. And this was done solely out of the goodness of his heart. Eric Clapton didn't need the money, and I don't believe that he made little or no money from this record. Eric Clapton, from the very beginning, was, I want you to know more about the people whose music I love, the people whose music influenced me, made me the musician I am today. So here I am. You should listen to these fellows as well as me. Clapton clearly, he's made it clear that he does not want a large number of non-white immigrants in Britain. Apparently, that is a controversial position for some reason. For the life of me, I really can't see why. Black people have their own countries, but yeah. Eric Clapton tours. Well, I guess he hasn't been touring lately because of this hysteria over COVID. But if you've ever seen any footage of Eric Clapton as a solo band leader, you will see that he has many black musicians in his band. Many, 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 many. This is highly paid work. Let's see. In his 2019 world tour, he had Nathan East, the famed session player, black man, playing bass, and he had the drummer this time was Steve Gadd. The backup singers are also always female. Willie Weeks, great black bass player, was Clapton's bass player for a couple of decades. Sonny Emery was one of the two drummers on that tour, a black man. Eric Clapton can work with whoever he wants. As I say, being a sideman in an Eric Clapton tour means that you stay in the best hotels and you are well paid and you play to sold out houses. Let's see, 5 nights sold out at the Nippon Budokan in Tokyo. The Royal Albert Hall sold out for 3 nights in London. I could go on. This is a very desirable job for a musician, especially these days when musicians are being replaced by computers, to tour with Eric Clapton. And Eric Clapton doesn't have to hire black musicians if he doesn't want to. He does so because he admires their skill, their expertise, their soul, if you will. There's a piece, in classic rock, how the blues was stolen and then stolen again and again. This is a rot subject for many reasons. Let's see. There is a 1974 hit, Give Me Strength. The record gave Clapton full writing credit, but according to Chicago singer-songwriter Louise King Matthews, it was she who wrote the song in 1939, before Clapton had even been born. How he came to believe he wrote it himself, Matthews couldn't understand. Well, I suspect, that a search was made of the various music publishing organizations. It comes up again and again and again where someone claims to have written some song, or that someone actually wrote some song. There is an awful lot of borrowing going on. And in fact, Willie Dixon's Spoonful borrowed, as it were, from other songs. That is to say, it seems pretty clear to me that to the best of his ability from the beginning of his career, Eric Clapton has tried as best he can to make sure that the people who wrote the songs were paid for the songs. Now, there's all sorts of examples in music of songs which are said to be traditional, but other people will claim, no, actually, this isn't a traditional song. Such and such a song wrote it. There's a song that not everybody, but lots and lots of people covered in the 1960s called Hey Joe. And Jimi Hendrix did the most famous version, but the Leaves did it and the Byrds did it. It was just a staple of the LA music scene in the 1960s. Now, apparently, someone called Billy Roberts got copyright of this. A very strange thing. You know, it seems to me that there is no actually known author of Hey Joe. If you look at any of these songs which came from, you know, child ballads or border ballads, of which there are many of which have become, you know, hits recorded many times. Can we actually point to a definitive author of them? Did Leadbelly really write In the Pines? Well, I don't know. I mean, you could argue. I mean, he was associated with the song. I don't think that he wrote it. Actually, this comes up. I was talking yesterday about Phil Spector. Phil Spector died in prison. It seems that Jim Gordon, the fabled drummer, is going to die in prison. He's been in prison since 1983. And he is 55? He's 75 years old now. He was a schizophrenic who killed his mother in the traditional schizophrenic way of stabbing her 50 times or hitting with a hammer 50 times. Jim Gordon wrote, or is attributed to have written, the second half of Layla, the bit with the prominent piano in it. Jim Gordon, he played with everybody. He was protege of Hal Blaine, and Hal Blaine introduced him into the Wrecking Crew. If you've heard any music from the 1960s and the 1970s, including Steely Dan, that's Jim Gordon playing. But I started seeing years ago that, oh no, Jim Gordon didn't write the second half of Layla. He stole it. He stole it from an old girlfriend of his, a musician, a singer. And it's interesting to me how this has changed. The story regarding this has changed. Rita Coolidge, who was a well-known backing singer, and she was a leading singer as well, but better known as a backing singer. The story goes that she wrote the song. The latest version is that, oh no, they wrote it together because they had been boyfriend and girlfriend. That is Jim Gordon and Rita Coolidge. The advantage of making this sort of claim is that, of course, Jim Gordon has been out of his mind, first on insanity and then on antipsychotic drugs for almost 4 decades. So he's not in a position to rebut or refute this story. I just mention it because there's just so much madness running through popular music, but also the question of who wrote what is, as I say, a fraught one. And these bluesmen were dealing with songs which they had heard from someone else, they'd inherited, and they knocked them around a little bit, added their own touches. But I just think that Eric Clapton is completely innocent with regard to the accusation that he has made a habit of stealing from Black people, quite the reverse. Again, assuming that the Black musicians whose songs he covered, that their publishing hadn't been stolen from them, Eric Clapton's recording of them would have made them quite well off, if not wealthy. But it's a sad fact of the music industry that there are few people who have not been ripped off of their publishing. Oh, of course, I sort of buried the lead myself here. Why all this carrying on about statements that Eric Clapton made in 1976? Why all this carrying on about J.J. Cale writing cocaine, when anyone who knows this much about popular music knows that J.J. Cale wrote the song Cocaine. Why? Because Eric Clapton, together with Van Morrison, recorded several anti-lockdown songs. And anyone who's against lockdowns is a murderer. So there's an additional reason for people to hate Eric Clapton. He's one of the great Canadians. Actually, well, he's half Canadian. There was an old saying during the Second World War in Britain that the flyboys, in particular, the members of the U.S. Army Air Corps or the Royal Canadian Air Forces, they were overpaid, oversexed, and over here, and they were irresistible to British women. Well, to a lot of them, because they were tall and handsome. They were certainly taller than British men at the time. They were reasonably well paid, and they had access to things like chocolates and nylons. And so as a result, a fair number of British girls were knocked up by foreign airmen, and Eric Clapton's mother was one. He did not know the identity of his father until decades after he was born. To recap, Eric Clapton, not a thief. Made lots of great music, and a brave man politically then and now. So that is the show for the day. I'm going to have a final look at the chat here. There will no... Okay. Oh, metal. Mr. Marvel says, I think metal will see a resurgence because people want music with talent and balls again. I was hinting at this earlier. If it's all 17-year-olds or girls who look like they're 17 or look like they're 12, like Miley Cyrus or the amusingly named Ariana Grande, or the colonization of all popular music by the alphabet people continues, this leaves a huge void. I've already mentioned previously, probably on many occasions, my continual amusement when I pass by construction sites of men in their 20s, and what are they listening to? They're listening to CCR, Led Zeppelin, Queen, and the like, AC/DC. They are not listening to music that is contemporary. And there's a reason for that, because the music industry decided circa 2000 that it was not interested in white males anymore. It was going to go after pubescent and prepubescent women, homosexuals, and blacks. Heterosexual white males remain a very large chunk of the population. They're leaving money on the table. The difficulty is, of course, is that they are a hard group to persuade. Huge advertising campaigns and the like are not sufficient. Also, many of these people, many of these bands, they didn't become famous all at once. That is to say, there was a lot of money in catalog sales. People would buy their third or fourth record and say, oh, what about the stuff before that? Maybe I should buy that too, which is what happened. But the music industry is no longer interested in catalog sales. It's all what they call smash and grab. Okay, let's see. Again, final look at the chat here. Okay, My Trail of Disgrace says, I fell asleep numerous times during Phantom. Oh, I did fall asleep during... Which is the one with Jar Jar Binks in it? There's a crawl, and it's about some sort of trade dispute, and I thought, I don't think I'm going to be able to stay awake. And of course, it was in one of those theaters with the stacked seating and the ultra high def sound system. So I fell asleep, and suddenly there would just be like this shocking noise, and I would jump out of my seat and go, what's happening now? And then I would go back to sleep. Matt Beck, this will be my final comment. I saw an old interview once where Eric Clapton said he thought he had a mission to spread black music throughout England. I couldn't quite take him seriously after that. I don't know. People generally have a mission to spread the music that so influenced them. I mean, David Bowie was constantly going on about this. I'm sure Scott Walker sold a lot of records because of the kind things that David Bowie said about him. I'm very suspicious of people who claim not to have had any influences, that they sprang out of the earth. It's simply not true. It's not true, and it bespeaks a lack of humility. Anyway, I'm going to be back on the air tomorrow at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern. Coming up on the show this week, the movie I'm going to be talking about on Thursday is Zero Effect from 1988, starring Bill Pullman, Ben Stiller, and Ryan O'Neal. And I'm going to talk about poetry on Friday because you all love poetry, right? I know it's a dead art form, but that does not diminish its value. And I'm going to be talking specifically about the poetry of Roy Campbell, who's kind of an unperson because he was right-wing. And he was in a literary milieu which was pretty much savagely left-wing. Well, then and now. And so, if you like the show or any part of it, I appreciate it if you'd click on the like button and subscribe to my YouTube channel if you have not done so already. If you'd like to donate to this live stream, make a donation to it, which would be exceedingly well appreciated. I'd like to get out of this hotel as soon as I can. My PayPal address is kevin_grace@hotmail.com. Once again, kevin_grace@hotmail.com. If you're Canadian, you can send a donation to me directly via interact@kevingrace@shaw.ca. And I shall leave you with this, my traditional benediction in these days of social atomization and civilizational collapse. I do dearly wish that you, my dear listeners and viewers, manage to form a genuine human connection in order to ease the burden. Good night.